The joy that is in store for you once you learn more about your non-physical self is indescribable. It's hard to describe in words. I can only tell you that every time you go to sleep at night, you're already being confronted with your non-physical spiritual self. So the more you learn about it, the more you learn to work with it consciously, well, the better off you'll be throughout your physical life experience for maybe decades still to come. So I hope you're ready for this video. Let's get into more abstract subjects today. Imagination looks at videos that we make and sees that it is good and sets out to replicate its own reflection in time and space. Now the things I do are predetermined through clear concepts of where I'm going with my life. Concepts which are developed subjectively and expressed objectively. You may have had the experience, or you may know of people who have dreamed about something and then it happened in their world not long after physically. This again shows there's a non-physical part to our existence that knows a lot more than just our surface minds ever do. I myself have had these experiences where in a vision at night things occurred to me that then took on form not long after in my physical world, even though at the time I shouldn't have had any knowledge of the event that was about to happen. Brothers and sisters, so tonight's subject is you live in two worlds at once. This might be shocking to you depending on how much you've studied your own mind, the spiritual, non-physical side of you. Though it might sound a little weird to most of you out there, it is still a truth that we can prove for ourselves and that we can't deny if we're honest about these subjects. First of all, I've said this in a previous video, when we go to sleep at night, where do you think your consciousness is going? Is it staying within your body or is it going outside of your body? Another peculiar thing to consider is the idea that we usually say that we need eyes to see. With eyes we have sight, the sense of sight. But when you go to sleep at night, you close your eyes. Once your eyes are closed, darkness is what you see. But out of the darkness comes a new world. These are spiritual mysteries, you could say. Because once you're dreaming, you're ultimately in a different world altogether, and you can see again. Which eyes are you using? Your physical eyes or non-physical spiritual eyes? Eyes of imagination, perhaps. Because if the dream world was seen with our physical eyes, then the dream world exists within our eyelids, because these things close over our eyes. And then eventually we start seeing stuff. It's like a free drug trip from the universe, you could almost reason. But let's not go that route, because it's kind of mocking the whole idea and taking it less serious. But I think this is a very important thing to consider as we go throughout our life journey to make it easier for ourselves to deal with the blows of life. Because a lot of times the issue that we're facing is that we're so stuck in our own physicality that we're unable to really see the bigger picture of our own existence. The bigger picture meaning there's a lot more to you than meets the eye. So I like that. I like putting that out there to people so that they can consider it. It's not meant to flatter you. It's not meant to, make you feel better about yourself in a strange way, like pumping up your ego in a way that it won't benefit you. It's something that you should consider for yourself when I say that or somebody else. There's more to us than meets the eye. Well, what is there? What more is there to me? What's your consciousness? It's your own soul essence. And that is the part of your spiritual self. So you have your physical self, which is very obvious. Right now you're seeing my physical self. You're not seeing my spiritual non-physical self at all. You can't see the person that I am when I'm in the dream world. You could have dreams seeing me in them. That's true, but right now you're not observing that version of me at all. You're only seeing the physical self. Likewise, if I see you right now, if I could, I can only see the physical side of you, but I should make an attempt to remember there's also a non-physical side to you, so that way I learn to have what they call righteous judgment, where you don't judge according to appearances alone. We were warned about this in scriptures as well, that we shouldn't just judge according to how things are physically, because there's a lot more going on behind the scenes of physicality. That was sounding kind of funny to me, I don't know why. So, I wanted to share with you an experience that has been going on as of late. Well, it's actually always going on. Last night I went to sleep and again, it happens. I can't really describe why it happens or how exactly it is done, but I close my eyes and after a while I notice I see something form. Like I could literally see the outlines of a room. I could see it form within my mind, even though my eyes were closed. But it's a strange sensation, a peculiar sensation comes over me, as if I'm opening my eyes. I'm opening the inner eyes of my mind. And as I focus in on these outlines, it takes on more and more clear form, this so-called room that I'm seeing. And it's a different room than where I would be now. It's not my bedroom at all. It's something totally else. And as I focus on it, I can feel it surround me. Like the dimension of that so-called dream takes over and impresses itself on my consciousness, and I become surrounded by a totally different world. And then I can feel this peculiar sensation as if I'm split from this physical part of me into a non-physical part, you could say. Because I can start looking around, but I know at the same time it's not my body doing that. It's not my eyes right now that are looking at this room that I'm seeing. So what's happening here? Well, it's that inner spiritual body of you taking over. But usually we go unconscious before that happens. That's why once you're dreaming, you're not aware usually that you're dreaming. Because before this happens, we go unconscious. So then when it does happen, we're not even aware that something strange actually occurred, something marvelous, something fascinating that could actually set us free. That could help us deal with the blows of life in ways that it could really make a huge difference for us. Because if you lose a loved one in this world, and we're talking about losing them through death, not through breakups or whatever, where they're just moving away out of your physical life, but they're still in this world. We're talking about the people who leave this world altogether. Well, this is the gateway through which they all go. I want you to consider that. It's a marvelous thing if you can just accept this premise that falling asleep isn't as nearly as different as actually dying in this life. Now, how can this benefit you? Well, it can benefit you in realizing that you don't have to really worry about anything. It can benefit you in the sense that even though your life might be hard right now, perhaps you're really in a position that you're unable to make it change. Like in certain countries in this world, it might take a huge effort in order to change it. If you're living under a dictatorship, for example, if you're living in a war zone, it's not easy to get out physically, right? Well, you can always get out through your mind. That's the beautiful part. You don't have to stay stuck in physicality alone. That's how it can cushion the blows of your physical life. Ultimately, that non-physical self can help you see, can help you build a way out of any limitations that you physically face, if that's what you want. But that's something that you can only discover from experience. So the more you become aware of this non-physical side of yourself, the more you actually learn to work with your true self, your inner self. That's what all of these ancient texts try to hint at, that you have an inner self. You have a spiritual, non-physical version of yourself that lives simultaneously in different dimensions as we go through this life experience on the physical side alone. It's a beautiful thing to grasp again, and it's something that we're going to have to face ourselves one way or the other. Brothers and sisters, there's no way around it. I don't care what your life is like right now. You might not be happy about it at all. You might be struggling, you might have all sorts of issues, but we don't want to judge simply on appearances alone. Because things are called into being from a non-physical part of a life. Think about it. What are ideas? Constructs of thought. Constructs of the mind. What is mind? Mind is an activity. It is not something that you physically grab or hold on to. Your mind is an activity, and the body is a manifestation of that activity. The body is the instrument of the mind. There again, we're hinting at the fact that you live in two worlds at the same time. Where do most people live? They only live in the physical side of life. In fact, it's so strange to me to realize that most people don't even consider what dreams are all about. They go to sleep at night, they have these dreams, these wild adventures perhaps, never questioning what it's all about, what actually happened there. They never question it. They're just like, oh, it was just a dream, yeah. You know, how could you actually see something? You closed your eyes, didn't you? It was pitch black, you could admit this. Yet you started seeing stuff moving around, doing things with a body? How does this even work? Nobody questions it. I do. I know a certain amount of people actually do, but the majority don't. No, they're so focused on their physical life alone. Of course, the physical side of your life needs to be good if you want to enjoy this journey that is ultimately temporary. You might live to 100 years old, you may go beyond that, or you might pass on earlier than that. You know, it's different for everyone. So it's important that those years that you are here are hopefully as fun as possible. So, of course, a certain amount of focus needs to be on this physical world. But if we're only focusing on the physical world, if we're only focused on how things are, we don't learn to express and use that power to which we can also shift how things actually are. This is what it's all about if you want to improve your life. You're going to have to change how you're using your mind if you want to change your life. Because your life is nothing but an expression of your own consciousness. So what sort of mind do you have? What sort of ideas are you entertaining on a daily basis? Where are you focusing your mind? What direction are you facing internally? It doesn't matter where you're looking at physically. I could look at my wall and I could still mentally face myself towards great things, a great purpose, a great future for myself that I want to create and share with you all. I can do that and you can do the same. The problem is most people, when they see a wall, they only see a wall. They don't have a vision. This is the thing. We were warned about this as well. Where there is no vision, the people will perish. Where there's no vision for a better life for yourself, you're going to stay stuck where you are right now. I think Helen Keller said that beautiful in her own way a long time ago. That it was something like that being blind wasn't the worst thing. But what's worse is having sight but no vision for a better future at all. Really think about that. Do you have one? Because that better vision, that better life, that vision for a better future, well, you create that with your non-physical self, with the part of your inner self. Something that isn't tight and locked into physicality. Therefore, you can see and think and do whatever you want through that part of yourself, and ultimately you can bring your physical self to go on that journey with you. This simply means that a bridge of incidents will occur, a bridge of activities will occur in your world. You're going to be involved in stuff that you may have never done before, and lo and behold, your physical life starts to change for the better. Yes, exactly. You live in two worlds at once. Your physical self, your spiritual, imaginative self. The imaginative self is the one that will set you free. It is the Son of God. It is that power of the universe that needs to awaken. Awake, O sleeper. Arise from the dead, and Christ shall give you light. It shall give you life. It was also stated, leave all and follow me. You don't want to follow a physical person at all. You want to leave all of your physical limitations behind and follow your imaginary self, which can set you free. Yes, this is a very interesting way of looking at it, and it's the one that I find most meaningful to myself. Of course, you can have different ideas of these quotes from scripture, it doesn't matter, but this is just what it means to me and how I can benefit from it and how I've seen others benefit from it once they dare to accept this premise in this manner. So you want to leave your troubles, your limitations behind that you experience physically. You want to mentally set them aside, and you want to open your mind, you want to open your imagination, so you can start to see and grasp a different reality for yourself that you can then start following. What does it mean to follow that imaginary self? Well, it means that you're starting to live up to that imaginary state. You're no longer living the life prior to finding this beautiful vision of a greater life for yourself. You're surrendering yourself to your ideal. That is what it's all about. And you do this again through your imaginative self, your spiritual, non-physical self. Because imagination is non-physical activity. Yes, it really is. If you imagine something right now, is it taking place physically in your room at the same time? No, not literally. It is taking place in a different part of your consciousness, which is, for lack of a better word, I guess, non-physical. It is spiritual. It is not physical in the sense that you can also look at it instantly and grab it. You know, if it was like that, it would have been awesome, right? Sometimes I wish it would be that fun. You know, just pretend. I could imagine money falling from my ceiling, and it instantly falls, and I just grab it. I'm like, I'm rich as hell, man. But then I don't have to work. I don't have to do anything. So in a way, perhaps it is beneficial that we're supposed to also be involved in activities in this dimension of time and space, where stuff takes a little time, a certain amount of time for it to happen. But in order to not get stuck in all those issues of when is it gonna happen, will it ever happen, how am I gonna make it happen, we're just gonna get familiar with a non-physical self, which is simply the imaginary self, which you already are using from the moment you were born. But nobody probably has taught you that. As adults, we have to learn about this because we are in the position to ultimately control our lives the way we want. As a child, you're still really dependent on your parents, so the parents want to be involved a lot of the times with what the child is doing. But as adults, assuming that you are one, and you're living on your own, hopefully, well then you're in a position to do whatever you want with your life. But the only way to do what you want with your life is to really direct it. Learn to understand who is the director of your life. It's your own imagination. Yes, everything that you see happening around you are creations of imagination. All those great movies, those box office hits, making hundreds of millions, maybe $1 billion in revenue. They are great hits, aren't they? But ultimately they were all constructions of imagination from a group of people. The cast and crew all had a similar idea, a vision of what this movie is going to be about, and they started creating it. And lo and behold, a creation took place that we would call a movie. It's a simple example, but again, in the past I also said, your movie is your life. Your life is like a movie. And in order to direct it, you're going to have to learn to work with your inner self. Again, the non-physical self, let it sink in. You live in two worlds at once, physical and spiritual. Now, where do you start with awareness of these ideas? When you first hear about this, where do you actually start? How do you learn to work then with your non-physical self? It's simple. It's all hidden in that one simple little question that most people never want to answer for themselves. It's, what do you really want? If anything would be possible to you, just imagine it, assume that it is. Just play, make believe, pretend, whatever. If anything is possible for you, well, what do you really want? Because by answering this question, well, then you're starting to invoke your non-physical self. It simply means that you start to get ideas and visions. Your imagination starts to kick into high gear, and you start to see stuff for yourself where you're like, this would be great, this would be awesome, this is what I really want. And then you have something to work towards. Then you're starting to work with your non-physical self. Right there, it's already happening. This is the easiest way for me to explain how you can learn to work with your non-physical self. It's by simply answering this question. Once you've answered it, and you really know for sure this is where you want to go with your life, dedicate all your time to doing it then. Now, of course, you might have other activities that take your attention, like your job, taking care of your family and kids, whatever. You need to do stuff besides your dreams. We all have that, but just dedicate a certain amount of time to those dreams still. Make time for your dreams, make room for it. Sadly, most people, they don't even want to make room for their own dreams. It's absurd. They know they want to live a better life, but they claim they don't have the time. We all get the same amount of time. It's what we are doing with our time that makes the difference. Since we all have the same amount of time, and other people out there are highly successful with similar things that you would want to do, it shows that time is not the issue here. It's how they are expressing and using their time compared to you. That's the difference. That might be the issue. In fact, usually that is the issue. If we would just set apart a certain amount of time to work on our dreams, we can grow there, we can make it happen. We will arrive at our destination, we will go to better places. It's the same for me. I need to make time to make these videos. If I'm even too lazy to do that, well, no videos will ever happen. Unless I find other people to do it for me, that's a possibility. But on this channel, I am sort of like the product. It's about this guy, Reneel, talking to you or trying to share with you some interesting ideas that you can think about, because these are timeless ideas, that much I do know. This is information that humanity is always going to need. There will always be people, hundreds of years from now, thousands of years from now, that will always have need for these ideas because they want to learn more about themselves and how they can use their own minds in a better way. So this is something you want to consider. And this ties into how you learn to work with your own non-physical self. How are you spending your time? Set aside time to work on what you really want for yourself. And then you'll see it grow. You'll see you get better at it. You'll see you grow closer to what you really wanted. And then you will have to remember always that what you really wanted started inside your consciousness through your imagination first and foremost. And as you grew there and your life became physically the reflection of your own imaginary states, don't be hypnotized back into physicality. Don't give your power over to physical causes. Yes, people or things may have happened physically for you that made it easier for you to achieve your dream. But we gotta remember the main cause. The main cause comes from the non-physical imaginary self. Now that is the only suggestion for this video that I could give you, but it was mostly meant to also impress upon you this idea, this concept of living in two worlds at the same time. So that you start thinking about this in your own time, hopefully you take it serious. And once you do, you'll understand that I'm never lying to you. I'm not making things up. I'm talking from my own personal experience of what's happening in my consciousness. And because I know the only difference between you and me is our physical appearance and our results. You may be a man like me or a woman. Then our genders would be different. And again, our physical appearance, that's all. That's different, and our results. So, the physical appearance is different between us. We may look similar. The results can be different between us, but they may be similar. But the results are more interesting because there specifically we can learn to consider, but how do these results come about? And then as you keep studying that for yourself, you realize, the results that we get in our lives are based on our own attitude. And our attitude is determined by how we think and how we feel within our consciousness. It's determined by how we imagine, how we use our imagination. It's determined on the self-image that we have created either willingly or subconsciously through other people, through our imagination. A self-image is a construction of your imagination of what you think you are all about. Change that concept, you'll change your life around. And that change of concept takes place again in your inner self, your non-physical self. Physically, you probably won't change around a lot. You could if you really wanted to change stuff around about you, but usually we don't really want that. So for most people, it really happens in the inner self alone. It happens within your consciousness. That's the best way for me to describe it in this moment in time. And so I hope you take this video into consideration and think about it deeply for yourself what this all means. If you look around you and you're like, the results that I'm getting right now are a reflection of how I'm using my consciousness. Of course, people might do stuff to you that cause negative results in your world, but take responsibility for your own results, for your own behavior, and you'll start to realize you still have the power within you to make something great out of it. Never forget this, because again, you live in two worlds at once, physical and spiritual, and it's the spiritual part of you that can set you free. This always fascinates me. Like I told you in a video last night when I went to sleep, I could literally see a different room appear, a different dimension. You could literally, it feels like being pulled as if you're a magnet, like something pulls you into a different realm altogether. That's what it feels like if you would stay conscious, entering your own dream world. Again, usually we go unconscious, even me, so it's always fun when I do get to experience sort of consciously how this all goes about. But it shows you clear evidence that there is more sides to us than just this physical appearance alone that we normally, assume is the only thing there is to us. That's why we get so sad when somebody passes on. Because we know they're gone from this dimension, but we might make the mistake of thinking they're gone forever. When they're not gone forever, you can always find them within your own consciousness if that's what you want. But you gotta learn how to move between dimensions, I would say. Anyways, let this video sink in. I hope it was interesting and gives you something to think about. And never forget, dear viewer, that we are the dreamers.